The day began with a high-stakes meeting inside the White House, one that many people never expected to see. The president stepped forward first, addressing reporters with a tone that was both upbeat and determined. He talked about how the meeting had been not just productive, but surprisingly unified. At the end of the day, he said, "We both want the same thing, a New York City that thrives." He went on to praise the newly elected mayor, noting how he had won a tough primary against several strong opponents. According to the president, the new mayor's rise wasn't luck. It was strategy, discipline, and connection with everyday people. He congratulated him openly, highlighting shared priorities: boosting housing development, lowering food costs, and tackling skyrocketing living expenses. The president emphasized that falling fuel prices and easing inflation would benefit New Yorkers directly. He cited national economic improvements and even referenced major retailers reporting lower holiday food prices. To him, everything tied back to affordability, and he insisted those improvements would ripple through New York City. When the mayor took the podium, he echoed much of that message but added his own perspective. He acknowledged the struggles faced by the 8.5 million people living in America's most expensive city, working families burdened by rent hikes, high grocery bills, and utility costs. He described the meeting as focused, respectful, and centered on shared responsibility. Reporters quickly shifted from policy talk to political tension. They questioned the mayor about his previously harsh criticisms of the president. Instead of backing away from his earlier words, he made a point. Disagreements will exist, but focusing on common ground is more important, especially when the stakes are this high. He emphasized that New Yorkers need cooperation, not conflict. The dynamic between the two leaders surprised many. Both acknowledged major ideological differences, yet both stressed affordability, safety, and economic relief as mutual goals. It was an unusual but striking moment of political alignment. And then came the Middle East question, a topic that always draws global attention. The president claimed dramatic progress toward peace, noting meetings with world leaders and ongoing efforts to disarm extremist groups. He insisted that the region was closer to stability than the world realized. The mayor, meanwhile, clarified that New Yorkers want their tax dollars to support human rights and local needs, highlighting the struggles faced by homeless children and families. The message was clear. Despite clashing worldviews, both leaders want fewer wars abroad and more resources for people at home. But the calm didn't last long, because the next round of questions pushed the conversation into one of the most controversial issues facing New York: crime, immigration, and what safety really means. And that's where things got intense. As the discussion shifted, reporters wasted no time pressing into one of the most sensitive topics: crime and public safety. The president spoke first, insisting that the priority is simple: removing dangerous individuals from the streets. He framed it as a matter of common-sense governance, saying that known violent offenders, drug traffickers, and individuals posing clear threats shouldn't be allowed to stay in the city. According to him, this wasn't a political stance. It was about ensuring families felt safe again. The mayor agreed, but from a different angle. He emphasized that New Yorkers deserve streets free from violence, and that true safety requires more than force. It requires strategy, fairness, and social stability. What surprised many in the room was how closely the two aligned on the foundational goal of reducing crime. The president even remarked that the mayor seemed more committed to removing dangerous criminals than people might think, hinting at unexpected common ground between them. When immigration entered the conversation, things grew even more complex. Reporters questioned the mayor about his criticism of federal immigration enforcement agencies, particularly ICE. The mayor clarified that the issue isn't cooperation, it's consistency. He explained that New York City already legally communicates with federal authorities regarding over 170 serious offenses. His concern was about indiscriminate enforcement on everyday residents, including families with children, that could break trust in immigrant communities. The president responded by shifting the focus back to the core message: no one wants criminals on the streets. He repeated that cooperation could work well as long as both sides shared the same goal: safety. According to him, the differences were less dramatic than the media often portrayed. Then came another round of political questions. A BBC reporter asked how much influence the president had on the mayor's campaign style, especially around social media and populist messaging. The mayor acknowledged that many voters, especially those who previously voted for the president, were driven by economic struggles, not ideology. He insisted his campaign simply reflected the issues people spoke about most: groceries, rent, utilities, childcare, and basic affordability. He said leaders should listen more than lecture. something that resonated with both his supporters and his critics. The president added that despite lowering fuel prices nationwide, energy bills in New York weren't dropping the way they should. He hinted at discussions with utility companies, suggesting that lower costs need to show up in the actual bills New Yorkers pay. This added yet another layer to the affordability theme that kept surfacing throughout the meeting. Both leaders agreed that if New Yorkers can't afford to live in their own city, political labels won't matter. The priority must be lowering costs, increasing stability, and restoring hope. But the moment the briefing seemed to be settling, a reporter raised a question that reignited global tension, forcing both leaders to confront a conflict that continues to reshape geopolitics. What they said next stunned the room.